Blind princess tried to escape the palace, but her mistake betrayed the rebellion. Shadows of tyranny. The cold marble beneath Princess Elara Noctis's fingertips told her more than sight ever could. Every groove, every subtle change in temperature revealed the palace's secrets. Secrets her uncle, Regent Darius Vex, believed safely hidden from his blind niece. "Your Highness," came the hushed voice of her handmaiden. "Lyra, the council meeting has ended. Your uncle asked for your presence in the throne room." Elara nodded, her long auburn hair falling across her face. Though she couldn't see, she knew precisely how to arrange her features into a mask of demure obedience, the same mask she'd worn for 19 years. "Tell him I'll be there momentarily," she replied, fingers tracing the hidden pocket of her gown where a folded message from the Twilight Resistance waited. Commander Kenna Frost's latest dispatch contained news of growing unrest in the western provinces. People were starving while the region's granaries overflowed. Once Lyra's footsteps faded, Elara moved with practiced confidence to the window, feeling the afternoon sun warm her face. Her kingdom of Lumeria spread beyond these walls, a land she'd never seen but loved with fierce devotion. "The harvest taxes have doubled again," she whispered to herself, recalling the message. How many more must suffer before someone acts? That someone, she had decided months ago, would be her. When Elara entered the throne room, she detected her uncle immediately. The cloying scent of blackroot oil he used to slick back his thinning hair, the subtle creak of the throne that had belonged to her father. "Niece," his voice slithered across the room. "I trust you've been keeping yourself occupied with your music and studies?" "Yes, uncle. My tutor says my harp playing has improved considerably." She curtsied, counting the footsteps of the guards stationed around the room. 6 today, not the usual 4. "Wonderful." His tone suggested anything but pleasure. "I've brought someone to meet you. Lord Tavish Blackwell has expressed interest in a marriage alliance." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Elara forced herself to maintain her placid expression while her mind raced. Blackwell was her uncle's closest ally, notorious for his cruelty toward the eastern villages. A new voice, oily and presumptuous. "Your Highness, what an honor. Tales of your beauty reach even the far corners of Lumeria. You're too kind, Lord Blackwell." Elara extended her hand in the direction of his voice, hating the way his damp fingers clasped hers. "The wedding will take place next month," Regent Vex declared. "Lord Blackwell will help secure our northern border against these unfortunate rebellious elements." Later that evening, Elara paced her chambers, heart pounding with renewed urgency. "Lyra, I need you to take a message to the usual place. Tell Kenna the timeline has changed. We must act before the month ends. Princess, are you certain? The resistance isn't fully prepared. My uncle plans to marry me off to Blackwell," Elara interrupted. "Once that happens, any legitimate claim I might have to the throne will be compromised. The people will lose hope entirely." After Lyra departed, Elara ran her fingers over the small wooden carving of a starbird, a gift from Thorn Ashwin, the palace gardener who secretly served as her link to the resistance. Tomorrow night he would help her escape these walls. As darkness fell, Elara listened to the night sounds of the palace, guards changing shifts, servants preparing for morning, and beneath it all, the steady drumbeat of a kingdom on the verge of revolution. Soon she would no longer be just a symbol of hope. She would become its catalyst. And the midnight flight. The night air carried whispers of rain as Elara waited in her chambers, every sense heightened. 3 soft taps on her door, the signal she'd been anticipating. "It's time, Princess." Thorn Ashwin's voice came low and urgent as he slipped into her room. The gardener's calloused hands gently guided her toward the secret panel he'd described in their planning. "I've memorized the path," Elara assured him, her fingers clutching a small pack containing only essentials. 300 steps north through the servants' tunnel, then east at the junction where water drips from the ceiling. Thorn squeezed her hand. "Commander Kenna will meet you at the willow grove beyond the eastern wall. Remember, if we're separated, head for the sound of running water and follow the stream south," she finished. The palace layout was etched in her mind through countless hours of studying maps with her sensitive fingertips. They moved swiftly through the hidden passage behind her wardrobe, the cool, musty air filling her lungs. Elara counted each step silently, her free hand tracing the damp stone walls. The weight of generations pressed upon her. She was the first royal in 200 years to attempt escape from the palace's golden cage. At step 247, a distant shout echoed through the tunnel. Thorn tensed beside her. "Guards at the eastern exit," he whispered. "We need to divert through the kitchens." This wasn't part of the plan. Alara's heart hammered as Thorn guided her down an unfamiliar passage. The subtle changes in air currents and echoes disoriented her carefully constructed mental map. "Wait," she whispered, pulling him to a stop. "I hear something." Boots on stone, multiple pairs approaching from what should have been an unused corridor. The sound patterns were wrong. Alara realized with horror that they were heading directly toward a patrol rather than away from one. "Thorn, this isn't right. The guards shouldn't be here." Her fingers tightened around his wrist. "This passage connects to the barracks, not the kitchens." Too late. The passage suddenly flooded with torchlight, voices raised in alarm. "Intruders! Sound the alert!" In the chaos that followed, Alara lost her grip on Thorn. She heard him engaging the guards, buying her time. "Run, princess. Second passage on your left." She fled, counting steps and turns, but the unfamiliar echoes betrayed her. When her outstretched hand met empty air instead of the expected wall, Alara stumbled into what felt like a large chamber. The sudden change in acoustics told her she'd entered a significant space. "Hello?" she called softly, disoriented and desperate. "Well, well," came a silky voice that froze her blood. "Princess Alara, wandering the secret passages alone at night. Captain Valen Morick, her uncle's ruthless enforcer." Alara backed away, but her heel caught on something, a chest or table, sending her sprawling onto hard stone. Papers scattered beneath her fall. Her sensitive fingers recognized the texture immediately. Maps. Not ordinary maps, but the detailed rebel plans showing supply routes, safe houses, and the names of resistant sympathizers within the palace. "Fascinating reading material you've discovered," Morick said, his footsteps circling her. "The regent will be most interested to learn that his blind niece has stumbled upon our security room, and the resistance intelligence we've been gathering." Alara's heart sank as she realized her terrible mistake. This wasn't a random patrol. She'd accidentally found the very center of her uncle's anti-rebellion operations. "Take her to the North Tower," Morick ordered his men, "and send word to every outpost on these maps. It seems our princess has just helped us crush her beloved rebellion." As rough hands pulled her to her feet, Alara heard the unmistakable sound of alarm bells beginning to toll across the palace grounds. Her escape had turned into catastrophe. Captured light. The North Tower cell was a study in cruelty, deliberately designed with uneven floors and randomly placed furniture to disorient a blind prisoner. Alara had spent 3 days mapping every inch with her hands and feet, refusing to give her captors the satisfaction of seeing her stumble. "Dinner, princess," announced the guard, the mocking title twisting from his lips. The tray clattered as he set it down, the smell of stale bread and watery soup turning her stomach. "Has there been word of Thorn?" she asked, keeping her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. "The gardener, executed yesterday at dawn." The guard's casual cruelty matched the regent's own. "Along with 3 other rebel sympathizers found based on those lovely maps you helped us discover." Alara maintained her composure until the heavy door slammed shut. Only then did she allow silent tears to fall. 4 deaths on her conscience. How many more would follow? The resistance camps would be vulnerable, Commander Kenna possibly captured or worse. Sleep came fitfully that night, broken by nightmares and the distant sounds of commotion in the palace below. Shortly before dawn, an unusual scraping at her door jolted her awake. "Who's there?" she called, pressing herself against the wall. The lock clicked and the door eased open with a whisper instead of its usual groan. The scent that entered wasn't the sour sweat of the guards, but something earthy, like pine and leather. "Princess Alara," a man's voice unfamiliar and low. "My name is Maddox Riven. I'm with the Resistance. We don't have much time." Hope surged painfully in her chest. "The Resistance still stands? Barely. Your capture compromised several outposts, but Kenna received warning in time to evacuate most." His warm hand found hers. "Can you walk?" "Yes." She gripped his calloused fingers. "How did you get in?" "I've been infiltrating the palace guard for months." The pride in his voice was unmistakable. "Tonight was my first watch rotation in the tower." As they moved silently through the corridors, Maddox guided her with gentle pressure on her elbow, describing obstacles in whispers. His patience struck her. No rushing, no impatience with her careful steps. 2 guards ahead, he murmured. Follow my lead. To her surprise, instead of avoiding the guards, he walked directly toward them. Captain wants the prisoner in the interrogation chamber, he stated with authoritative confidence. At this hour, came the skeptical reply. New intelligence from the western camp. Needs confirmation immediately. The tension stretched until one guard sighed. Your funeral if she's not back by morning inspection. They passed, Ilara's heart thundering so loudly she was certain everyone could hear it. Once clear, Maddox led her down a series of turns she recognized from her mental map. They were heading for the servants' quarters. You're hurt, he observed as she winced at a sharp pain in her side, a souvenir from rough handling during her capture. It's nothing, she insisted. His hand gently brushed her waist where she'd been injured. I'll tend to that once we're safe. The unexpected tenderness in his voice made something flutter in her chest, a sensation that had no place in their desperate flight. Why risk everything for me? She asked as they paused in an alcove, waiting for patrolling guards to pass. Because you risked everything first, Maddox replied simply. Your courage gave the people hope and, he hesitated. I made a promise to someone I loved that I would never stand by while innocents suffered under tyranny. There was a story there, a wound still healing. But before she could ask more, shouts erupted from the direction of the North Tower. Their escape had been discovered. We need to move now, Maddox whispered urgently, taking her hand. Do you trust me? Despite having just met him, despite her catastrophic mistake days earlier, Ilara found herself nodding. Yes. Together they raced toward an uncertain freedom, the sound of pursuit echoing behind them like the heartbeat of the revolution she had inadvertently betrayed, but might yet help save. I whispered confessions. Dawn broke over the whispering woods as Maddox led Ilara through the dense underbrush. They had escaped the palace grounds through an abandoned drainage tunnel, wading through frigid water that had left them both shivering and drenched. Now exhaustion pulled at Ilara's limbs with each step. Just a little further, Maddox encouraged, his steady hand at her elbow. The sanctuary is hidden in the heart of the forest. Ilara's acute hearing picked up the subtle changes in the forest sounds, birds growing quieter, the wind shifting direction. There are people ahead, she murmured. At least 5 trying to move silently. Maddox tensed beside her. How do you know? The birds stopped singing in a pattern, moving outward from a central point, and I can hear breathing, controlled but present. He squeezed her arm gently. Remarkable. You're right. He whistled a 4-note sequence that rose and fell like a nightingale's call. The forest answered with the same melody, and tension drained from Maddox's posture. Resistance scouts, he explained. We're almost home. The sanctuary revealed itself not as a building but as a network of caves ingeniously hidden beneath ancient tree roots. Inside, the air was surprisingly warm and carried scents of herbs, cooking, and the indefinable smell of people living in close quarters. Maddox returns, a voice called out, followed by murmurs and approaching footsteps. With Princess Ilara, Maddox added, guiding her forward. The sudden silence spoke volumes about the mixed feelings her presence evoked. A woman's voice broke the quiet. The princess whose mistake cost us 3 outposts and 12 lives. Ilara flinched as if struck but lifted her chin. I made a terrible error that cannot be undone. I offer no excuses, only my deepest remorse and my promise to help however I can to make amends. She risked everything to join us, Maddox defended, and she needs medical attention. Someone stepped forward, the scent of lavender preceding her. I'm Seren, the healer here. Come, let's see to those injuries. In a small alcove curtained off from the main cave, Ilara sat still as Seren examined her bruised ribs and the cuts on her hands from her desperate scramble through the tunnel. Maddox hasn't taken his eyes off you since you arrived, Seren observed casually while applying a stinging salve. Heat rushed to Ilara's cheeks. He's probably making sure I don't betray your location next. No, the healer said softly. That's not what I see in his eyes. Later, Ilara sat by a small fire, letting its warmth chase away the last of the chill. Footsteps approached. Maddox, she could tell from his distinctive gait. Feeling better? He asked, settling beside her. The physical pain is nothing compared to knowing what my actions cost, she replied, turning her face toward the fire she couldn't see. Maddox was quiet for a long moment. My wife and daughter lived in Emberley Village, he finally said. When they refused to pay your uncle's taxes, the entire village was burned as an example. I was away, fighting on the northern border for a king who was already dead. Ilara's breath caught. I'm so sorry. I joined the resistance that day, he continued, voice thick with memory. Not for revenge, but because I couldn't bear the thought of anyone else suffering that loss. Hesitantly, she reached out. Her fingers found his hand, calloused and warm. And now you've rescued the niece of the man responsible for your pain. I see more than your bloodline. Ilara. The way he said her name without title or pretense sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with the cold. I see your courage, your determination to right wrongs you didn't create. Days passed in the sanctuary, and Ilara found purpose helping the resistance decrypt messages intercepted from palace communications. Her memory for details and patterns proved invaluable, slowly earning the trust of those around her. One evening, as Maddox walked her through the forest to memorize escape routes, a sudden rainstorm forced them to shelter in a hollow tree. Your heartbeat quickens when I'm near, she observed, emboldened by the intimacy of their shelter. I can hear it, he laughed softly. Another remarkable talent. Is it because you still see me as the enemy? She asked, vulnerability creeping into her voice. No. His hand found hers in the darkness. It's because when I look at you, I see a future worth fighting for. The rain drummed against leaves as he gently traced her features with his fingertips, allowing her to see him as she did the world through touch. Ilara's breath caught as his thumb brushed across her lips. I've never seen your face, she whispered, but I know it all the same. When his lips found hers, it was like discovering a language she'd always known but never spoken. His arms encircled her waist, drawing her against him as the kiss deepened, telling stories of loss and hope and possibilities neither had dared imagine. We should return, Maddox murmured against her hair sometime later, though he made no move to release her. Ilara smiled, resting her head against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm that had become her favorite sound. Yes, she agreed. The others will be planning tonight's council, a council where, unknown to them, Commander Kenna would propose the most audacious plan yet, one that would place Ilara at its center and test the fragile trust and newfound love that had bloomed in the shadow of rebellion. Dawn's rebellion. The grand hall of the palace echoed with the sounds of celebration. Regent Darius Vex had declared a victory feast, claiming the rebellion had been crushed. Lords and ladies from across Lumaria gathered in their finery, eager to curry favor with the man who had solidified his grip on power. No one paid attention to the servant girl with downcast eyes who navigated the hall with surprising confidence, carrying a tray of wine goblets. If they had looked closer, they might have recognized the supposedly captive Princess Ilara, her auburn hair now cropped short and dyed black. Northwest corner, 2 guards. Maddox's voice whispered through the tiny shell tucked behind her ear, an ingenious communication device crafted by the Resistance's inventor. Pax. Received, she murmured, appearing to adjust her serving cloth. 1 month of intensive training had taught her to use her other senses with even greater precision. She could now identify individuals by their footsteps, catalog room layouts by their acoustics, and detect the subtle sound differences between regular guards and elite royal protectors. The plan was audacious. While Ilara mapped the guard rotations from inside, Commander Kenna's forces would infiltrate through passages only Ilara had committed to memory. Together, they would capture the regent and his inner circle in one coordinated strike. My dear niece has provided us unexpected benefits, the regent's voice carried across the hall. Her treasonous escape attempt exposed the rebel vermin hiding among us. Ilara's jaw tightened as she continued her circuit of the room, counting steps and mentally noting the position of each guard. Her capture had indeed exposed people, but not those her uncle believed. In the 3 weeks following her rescue, carefully planted information had led the regent's forces to empty safe houses and abandoned camps, while the true resistance regrouped and strengthened. The northeast passage is clear, she whispered, positioning herself near a tapestry that concealed a servant's entrance. 3 minutes until guard rotation. As the clock tower struck 10, the great hall doors burst open. Lord Tavish Blackwell stormed in, face flushed with rage and wine. "Vex!" he shouted. Your incompetent border guards just let a contingent of rebels through the western gate. The hall erupted in chaos, exactly as planned. While attention focused on Blackwell's disruption, Ilara slipped behind the tapestry and unlocked the hidden door. Cool air rushed in as silent shadows entered, Maddox leading a dozen resistance fighters. "Right on time," she whispered as his hand found hers. "Always," he replied, pressing a quick kiss to her palm before moving into position. Ilara drew a small dagger from beneath her servant's garb. "Northeast corridor leads to the Regent's private chambers. He'll retreat there when the alarm sounds." "And we'll be waiting," Maddox confirmed. The next moments passed in controlled chaos. As rebel forces emerged from every hidden passage, the palace guards found themselves outmaneuvered. The nobles, realizing they were surrounded, quickly surrendered, rather than risk their precious lives. Ilara moved with purpose through familiar corridors, Maddox at her side. When they reached the ornate doors of the Regent's chambers, she paused. "He's not alone," she whispered, head tilted. "Captain Morrick is with him." Maddox signaled to the fighters behind them. "Ready?" The doors splintered under their assault. Inside, the Regent and Morrick stood surrounded by maps and half-packed trunks preparing for escape. "Impossible," Vex gasped. "You're in the North Tower." Ilara stepped forward, removing the servant's cap. "Hello, Uncle. Your hospitality was lacking, so I found better accommodations." "Seize them," Morrick commanded, but the guards who entered behind them wore the subtle emblem of the resistance on their sleeves. Palace guards who had secretly defected months ago. "Your reign ends today," Maddox declared, sword leveled at the Regent's throat. Vex laughed bitterly. "And what will you replace it with? A blind girl guided by a peasant soldier?" "No," came Commander Kenna's voice as she strode into the room. "With a ruler who sees with her heart, and a council elected by the people." As dawn broke over Lumaria, the palace balcony hosted a very different gathering. Princess Ilara Noctis stood before her people, Maddox's steady presence beside her as she addressed the crowd. "I cannot see your faces," her voice carried across the square, "but I hear your suffering and feel your hope. Today marks the end of tyranny and the beginning of a new Lumaria, one built on justice and compassion." The crowd's roar was deafening. Ilara's hand found Maddox's, fingers intertwining. "Are they smiling?" she whispered. "Yes," he replied, voice thick with emotion, "and so am I." Later, as celebrations spread throughout the city, Ilara and Maddox stood in the palace gardens, snow beginning to dust the winter-bare branches. "The council wants to crown you queen," Maddox said, brushing a snowflake from her cheek. Ilara shook her head. "I will serve, but not as a monarch. Lumaria deserves leaders chosen for their wisdom, not their bloodline." "Always thinking of others," he murmured, drawing her close. "It's why I fell in love with you." She smiled, reaching up to trace the features she'd memorized through touch, the strong jaw, the small scar above his eyebrow, the laugh lines at the corners of his eyes. "What happens now?" she asked. Maddox took her hand and pressed something small and round into her palm. A ring carved from wood, a starbird like the one Thorn had given her, symbol of the resistance. "Now," he said softly, "we build something new. Together." As snow fell around them, Ilara stood on tiptoe and found his lips with hers, a kiss that tasted of victory and promise and dawn breaking after the longest night. In a world she navigated through sound and touch and heart, she had found the clearest vision of all. Love born in darkness, flourishing in light.